The grooming cover-up in this country is still causing a lot of problems, but things are getting much worse as the police are now targeting the protesters who simply confronted the local authorities and those responsible. Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. So, as we have been reporting over the last, few weeks, and I've been spending the last, I think it's been 10 years now, since people like me have started talking about this, and then people like Majid Nawaz, and actually people like Tommy Robinson have been talking about it for ages as well. Nobody listened, nobody cared, and sometimes you see some of the new media and some outlets finally talking about something that we've been trying to raise for years. But the situation in places like Oldham and Telford, the more recent discoveries are escalating. Because, we've had it for years, from Rotherham to all the other places around the country. Now, the issue here is that, as we reported recently, there was a local council hearing that you had Andy Burnham there, you had a number of officials there who were being accused, and they said, well, what are you actually going to do about this scandal? You had our young people who are at risk, and the victims are being completely shut down. There were a lot of confrontations, there was a lot of shouting, and it's called British democracy. That's just normal behavior. That's normal. It's always been. That's how we are strong as a country. But apparently, it's no longer acceptable. That was the only thing we had when it comes to free speech in this country for centuries. That you can go up to the state and the establishment and the king and shout, and you could be fine. But no anymore, because shouting at Andy Burnham means that you're gonna get approached and targeted by the police, and you will get ASBO. So, on the ground of antisocial behavior, a lot of people, including an elderly gentleman in his 80s, has received an antisocial behavior order because he was too loud when he shouted at Andy Burnham. Now, I definitely do not condone the behavior that goes too far. Anything that's, obviously confrontation-wise is physical or inciting physical, then that's absolutely out of order. That's just no longer acceptable. But simply going out there to confront the local authorities and the establishment should not really have this situation. So this was the letter that they sent to these people, and they got bullet points. They're saying, well, intentionally or recklessly causing public nuisance. Really? So is the same thing as the electorate and taxpayer having demands. The reason people got frustrated in that hearing was because they were not being heard, and even that council chamber, when they were asking questions from Andy Burnham and the council leaders and all the others, they weren't answering the questions. They kept saying, can you just answer the question? Then you can't expect the public not to get angry, not to start shouting around. That's what has happened. Now, they also say you've been part of a group who accosted the member of the press reporting at the meeting, accusing her of not telling the truth. That used to be normal in the British culture. That's just the whole resisting authority. People always used to be able to be free to actually accuse the establishment, again, the king and queens and everybody else, of not telling the truth. That was normal. You have to speak to the truth about it. Even if it's not true, you have to be able to say it. And then you could find out if it's actually realistic or not. But clearly that's not really the case anymore. Now, putting aside anyone who does slander or libel, or again inciting physical stuff, then that's that aside. Anyone who does that's a whole different category. But simply trying to find out the truth, that is a bit out of order. And you wonder why people are saying, well, this is just part of the cover-up. The police are covering up on behalf of the local authorities in Oldham and Telford and other places. That's why people are sick and tired of this. Allow a debate to happen, then you won't have people shouting. If you actually allow proper transparency and accountability, make it public. Make it go out there on BBC and Sky. Do it. See what happens. People will actually have a proper discussion about this. People need to know the truth. The victims need some justice. That's all it is. Now we're going to come back and we're going to tell you, speaking of establishment, we're going to tell you about a communist member of SAGE who is now joining the World Health Organization, actually, not the World Economic Forum. What's the difference, right? Subscribe to the channel. I'm Tousi and we are the media.